What's up everyone on the internet? Thank you for making this video part. Damn sucks I upload one for you guys because this video we'll be taking a look at the conclusion of Netflix's Transformers trilogy, Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom. So this final installment of the War for Cybertron trilogy was released about a week ago on Netflix and picks up right where we left off from Earthrise, where we see both the Autobots and the Decepticons crash land on Earth. But what made this final chapter more exciting than the others was that not only were we going to see the Autobots and the Decepticons duke it out in one final battle, but the Maximals and the Predacons are joining the fight as well. And if you're a Beast Wars fans like me, then our expectations were set pretty high. I mean, come on, it doesn't get any more cooler than watching Megatron transform into a T-Rex. But anyway, the story picks up right where we left off from Season 2, where the Autobots and Decepticons crash land on Earth, and Megatron has a matrix of leadership that can lead him to the Allspark. And while everyone's trying to get their ships back online, the Maximals and the Predacons jump in on the action. And let me tell you, seeing the animator stick close to the original designs of these Beast Wars characters, but also adding in a little more modern detail to them, is pretty cool. Even watching them transform is enough to take you back to the 90s as you see these characters use the same transformation movement between their robot modes and their beast modes. Now, while I loved watching these Transformers finally return, the one character that I needed to hear was Megatron, played by David Kaye, who made my Megatron such a delightful villain. And the show drops the ball. Well, I shouldn't be surprised, given that one of the problems that I've had with this series is that even though we have connections to legendary voices like Peter Cullen and Frank Walker, the original Optimus Prime and Megatron, the show decides not to use them. So there was little hope that we were going to get David Kaye and Gary Chalk to voice our Optimus and Megatron that we saw in Beast Wars. But you know, one of the problems that I had with this third season was how they portrayed this version of Beast Wars Megatron as opposed to how you would see in the original cartoon. Because in Beast Wars, he had a very gentleman-like presence that served very well with his overpowering nature that just overwhelmed his enemies and his allies. But when you watch War for Cybertron Kingdom, this version of Megatron pretty much just worships the original Megatron, as he should, because let's face it, nothing can beat the original. But if this was David Kaye's Beast Wars Megatron, then we would have seen both these Megatrons fight to the death for supremacy. Because one of the things I learned from Transformers Animated was that if Megatron was ever cloned, then each and every version of himself would kill each other to be the leader of the Decepticons. And while seeing both Megatrons work together is a very scary thing to see, it makes you wonder, why didn't Beast Wars Megatron take out the original Megatron? Because as we've seen throughout this trilogy, Megatron has gone through an incredible journey from trying to save Cybertron, meeting up with Galvatron, and then reuniting with his descendants who has the golden disc that can tell his future. And with all this knowledge and power at his disposal, it soon sends him on a downward spiral as he starts to get a little crazy. It's almost like Lord of the Rings whenever we saw a character go through a crazy change in personality whenever they came in contact with the One Ring. So it makes perfect sense for the new Megatron to take out the old one and become the leader of both the Predacons and the Decepticons, given that the old Megatron is starting to lose his mind. However, that didn't happen, as this Megatron is pretty much a humble servant to the original Megatron. But anyway, going back to the show, while I was disappointed to see every Beast Wars characters be replaced with new voice actors, I was happy to see that the story stuck close to the personalities that each character had in the original cartoon. One of them in particular was Dinobot, who pretty much had the best character development in Beast Wars. And it looks like War for Cybertron tries to stick close to the source material as we see this version of Dinobot have the same internal struggles that the original had in Beast Wars, which pays off as we see this version of Dinobot pretty much have the same character arc as the original. And while I applaud them for it, it felt kind of rushed. Maybe it's because this season was 6 episodes long as opposed to Beast Wars, which had 2 seasons to build up Dinobot's character development. Well, it is what it is. But anyway, from a technical perspective, one thing that caught my attention was how the show highlighted certain moments where you see that the Maximals are an improvement from the Autobots. One moment in particular is when we're seeing all sides of this war race to find the Allspark, and while the Maximals are able to overcome any kind of terrain, the Autobots are struggling to where they can't even climb a mountain. It's a nice little detail that shows how every faction in the Transformers franchise has their own strengths. Another thing that I liked was how this story builds up from what we saw at the end of War for Cybertron Earthrise, where Unicron has this off-screen presence that can be felt throughout this entire third season. And after watching this third season, it made me realize how each individual installment of this trilogy is meant to pay homage to different Transformers fans. In War for Cybertron Siege, that particular season almost feels like it was meant for fans who played the video games. For War for Cybertron Earthrise, that season pays a lot of homage to fans who grew up watching the original Transformers movie. And when you look at War for Cybertron Kingdom, this season feels like it was meant for fans who grew up with Beast Wars. Now, while I loved watching the Maximals and Predacons fight alongside with the Autobots and Decepticons, I do feel like the story was a bit rushed given how I wanted to see a lot more Beast Wars action. But like I said earlier, it is what it is. With that being said, looking at how this trilogy ends, it makes you wonder on whether or not we're going to see another installment to this franchise, given how the final scene leaves you with an open ending. Honestly, I would love to see more installments in this new Transformers series, but I would also be okay if this series decided to end right here, right now. So if you're looking for something to binge on Netflix and you're a big Transformers fan, I highly recommend you watch this trilogy, but I also recommend that you lower your expectations. Well, that's going to do it for this video, guys. That was my overall view for Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom. If you like what you saw, click the subscribe button so you can get the latest updates from this channel. I'll see you next time with a brand new video. Bye-bye.